Welcome back to the Hip Hop Report, and today we'll be discussing the benefits of beef. You know, there's not a lot of genres in the music industry that give you the benefits of beef. The benefits or even the experience of having two artists go head to head, toe to toe, and go back and forth with their art form. Like hip hop. Hip hop, thank God, has the ability to make music a sport, to spar, to attack your opponent, to dissect them and to break them down from a personality and an artistic form. And throughout years, beef to me has brought out the best in artists because pressure busts pipes. And throughout all of these beefs in the past few years, we've seen some amazing moments, amazing memories, music, and even discovered talented artists that came from it. This 50 Cent T.I. beef we thought was over. And as you heard right there, T.I. is still taking shots. With Trauma, he not only teams up with his entire family to do the chorus and the bridge and to basically showcase one of his biggest assets, and that's his ability to create a family, to create a foundation, to create a legacy that reaches further than just dollar bills and the bag. Die-hard fans of 50 Cent, even though you don't actually consume his music, you just like him because his persona, his memes, he's funny, he's entertaining. But do you actually listen to his music today? I would say if you're under a certain age, you probably don't. You just like the fact that he's a celebrity, but he moves around like he's a neighborhood guy that just likes to poke fun and be petty, that's kind of like the internet wave nowadays. We take nothing serious and we make everything a joke, and then when shit hits the fan, oh, you took it too far. That's why you hear T.I. take shots at 50 saying, you basically sold out for the algorithm, even going as far as to name your album the algorithm. And even though sometimes I feel like as media, we cover these topics and we cover these artists and we cover the music, and it turns out that they all basically have rollouts coming out. 50 has a new album, The Algorithm. T.I. has a new album, dissecting whether this person's gonna respond or not respond, or they're gonna do the verses or they're not gonna do the verses. Sometimes we feel played because we feel like, have they just been plotting this out behind the scenes to roll out their new project? But at the end of the day, that's why we love the genre. That's why we love the game. That's why we love the music. But when it comes down to it, we really have to appreciate the things that we get. You know, we got amazing music from Damani, and even revealed Damani as being a definitely talent to watch out for. I wouldn't even be surprised if Damani ends up on the XXL cover next year. Not that the XXL cover is a huge thing anymore, because they've lost so much credibility by, you know, championing things that just didn't need to be championed. It's like a lot of these people in the media. You have your academics, your Adam 22s that you either never knew what hip hop was really about, or you just lost track of what hip hop was really about. Even the narrative of like, oh, Kendrick ruined hip hop. Kendrick didn't ruin hip hop. He revealed hip hop to not be rap. He ruined rap, if anything, because through the entire SoundCloud era, we saw so much talent that came and went, flash in the pan, came out with records that never lasted the test of time. That's when you step out, you go to the club, you go to these functions, you don't hear anything new. You don't hear new records. You know why? Because even during the time of the SoundCloud era, a lot of those artists made it very apparent and were very vocal about the idea that, you know what, they didn't care about the history of hip hop. They didn't care about the artists that came before them. They didn't care about the art of hip hop because they all were pursuing the bag. The bag has blinded a lot of these artists into becoming basically just vultures of their own art form, vulture of their own culture, because they don't know how to manage the idea of making music and telling the story in an authentic way. They're just saying what they think is going to be successful, what the fans are going to consume, and in a way they're right. But I guess ultimately their motivation and the way that they are inspired is by the money and not by leaving a legacy that is going to create classic music, classic and timeless moments with their art that will resonate with fans to the point where, you know, they can still tour when they're 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. We just caught E40 live last weekend. Everybody was excited because E40 comes from a generation that not just valued the form of hip hop and on the art form of hip hop, but actually championed it. treated it with respect and put it on his shoulders and carried it for now over 20 years. And you don't see new artists doing that. I would say probably one of the most successful artists from the SoundCloud era was Lil Yachty, and the only reason that he has any staying power is because he proved that he could write records for other artists and give people great art that they could interpret as their own. But everybody knows that Lil Yachty just didn't deliver any music that had any staying power, that had any true cultural value or resonated beyond the moment that it created. And I think that's the biggest problem with it. So when they ask me, why isn't new music as seen as good? Why isn't there any new classics? Why are new artists incapable of making classic albums? I point you to the generation that never cared about the art. I think Timothy Chalamet, I don't care what his name is. At the end of the day, his situation this past week with the Oscars and trying to shit on ballet and opera is a perfect example. This kid grew up with a family who performed in the opera, who performed ballet, and somehow he's made it a point to go on interview after interview after interview throughout the years and downplay the value of that art form, of downplay the value of that concept. And maybe that is trauma. Maybe that's his trauma. And that's why he's trying so hard to separate himself from being involved in that world. But what happens is that when you shit on the art form that opened the doors and that paved the way for you to be able to stand on your own 2 feet to make a living out of that art form will shit on you much faster. And that's what happened. That's why the kid went 0-9. Not that Michael B. Jordan didn't deserve to win his Oscar, but at the end of the day, when you look at the trajectory of both of these artists, of both of these actors, or of any artist for that matter, you end up seeing that at the end of the road, everybody gets their just due. And he just had it coming. So this is the same with any artist in the hip hop genre that is trying to make a living and leave a legacy, if they even care about legacy. If you ask younger audiences today about 50 Cent, they're probably more likely to remember that he's funny and that he has memes and he posts stuff online. And they definitely aren't going to be talking about the Algorithm album. Who you see putting out music and putting out product is still the artist from the golden era of hip hop. 90s, 2000s. One of the best things about a diss record is when you can listen to a diss record and not think about the fact that it was based off beef. The fact that it can just live as a good record and you can listen to it for years to come and not think about the beef and just enjoy it as a record as what it is. Now, with that being said, just remember, now one of the best things that we're getting from beef isn't the beef in itself, but the product that these artists are putting out when the pressure is on. I'm surprised that I haven't heard Fabulous drop a record. I'm kind of disappointed, honestly. I'm surprised that Jim Jones has just tried to retaliate by yapping on podcasts and not going into the music. I'm surprised that Mano is the one person that jumped out and actually spoke up. We have to be strategic, but also respectful of the art and what we're doing. You know, it would be great to see 50 get off online and actually drop music. And, you know, he dropped the one record, but even that one seemed disingenuous because he wasn't doing it for the sake of promoting the record. He was doing it for the sake of promoting the show. And at the end of the day, there's nothing that he's dropped that's been better than T.I.'s current single. And that's a fact. With the Hip Hop Report, I am Rambo Hustle.